What up, nerds?
Shaboy!
I'm Jerod, and this is Changelog News for the week of Monday, June 12th, 2023. This week's episode features
One more
interview from Open Source Summit, where Adam and I talk with Red Hat's Jefro all about Automotive Linux. So stick around past the outro if that interests you. Okay, let's get into the news. Last week, we covered how Reddit's API overpricing changes caused its third-party devs to announce closures, which caused many of its mods and users to revolt. Later in the week, Reddit CEO Steve Huffman held a dumpster fire of an AMA, doubling down on the pricing and on his treatment of beloved Apollo dev Christian Seelig. This week, the revolt began in earnest, and boy did it.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
At the time of publishing, over 8,000 unique subreddits have gone dark, representing almost 30,000 moderators for a subscribed user count of 2.7 billion. It's been so bad for Reddit, in fact, that the site and API was down for multiple hours today.
That is one big pile of
My word, it's possible that they never fully recover from this. I've heard it said that history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. Reddit's implosion has many people looking elsewhere for their not-so-centralized Reddit replacement. Enter Lemmy, a link aggregator for the fediverse. Yes, the fediverse strikes again. Lemmy is a self-hosted social link aggregation and discussion platform. It is completely free and open and not controlled by any company. This means that there is no advertising, tracking, or secret algorithms. Content is organized into communities, so it is easy to subscribe to topics that you're interested in, and ignore others. Can Lemmy do for disillusioned redditors what Mastodon did during the Twitter exodus? Time will tell, but for now, we'll link you to a guide to finding Lemmy communities and an awesome list of Lemmy instances to choose from. Up next, OpenObserve is a cloud-native observability platform built specifically for logs, metrics, traces, and analytics, designed to work at petabyte scale.
Huge!
According to its creators, quote, "It's very simple and easy to operate as opposed to Elasticsearch, which requires a couple dozen knobs to understand and tune. With OpenObserve, you can get up and running in under 2 minutes. It's a drop-in replacement for Elasticsearch if you're just ingesting data using APIs and searching using Kibana. Kibana is not supported nor required with OpenObserve. OpenObserve provides its own UI, which does not require separate installation, unlike Kibana." End quote. An interesting offering indeed. Here's a couple choice quotes from the comments section. User Get to the Choppa says, quote, "I just tried this 3 days ago. As someone running a home lab and hadn't set up logging yet, it was a great find. I didn't have to learn and combine 3+ log technologies. It's just a single all-in-one monitoring server with web UI, dashboards, log, filtering/search, etc. RAM usage of the Docker container was under 100 megabytes. End quote. And user SurgeAxe says, quote, "Interesting product. Thank you for the effort. Definitely want to give it a try. For me, though, setting up a system is not the primary pain point today. For what it's worth, signing up for a cloud service is not hard. The problem starts at the ingestion point." End quote. Let's do some sponsored news. Do your users bear the burden of integrating your APIs? That's not great. Or maybe you're manually updating and maintaining a laundry list of client libraries. That's a pain. Here's a better idea. Build your APIs using industry standards like OpenAPI 3, Postman, etc., and use Speakeasy's pipeline to create idiomatic SDKs for all of the most popular languages and frameworks right out of the box. Here's the best part. Their pipeline operates as part of your CI/CD. So when your API changes, your SDKs change with it. It even automates publishing to your favorite package managers like PyPy, NPM, Maven, etc. If that sounds like a better world to you, head over to speakeasyapi.dev and join the beta today. Once again, that's speakeasyapi.dev. There's a link in your show notes. Check it out. Julia Evans is one of the most successful developer bloggers out there, so when she decides to write up some myths about blogging, it's worth paying attention to. Here are a few myths that she debunks in the linked post. Myth: you need to be original. Myth: you need to be an expert. Myth: writing boring posts is bad. Myth: posts need to be 100% correct. Myth: you need to explain every concept. Myth: page views matter. Myth: more material is always better. She goes into the details as to why each of these are a myth, and here's a good contrarian one from the end. Myth: everyone should blog. Quote, blogging isn't for everyone. Tons of amazing developers don't have blogs or personal websites at all. I write because it's fun for me, and it helps me organize my thoughts. That is the news for now. On Wednesday, we go deep on passkeys with Anna Poblitz, the head of passwordless at 1Password. And on Friday's talk show, Matt Ryer joins us for what will surely be a ridiculously good time. Have a great week, share changelog news with friends who might dig it, and I'll talk to you again real soon. Oh, and if you have some more time, stick around for our conversation about Automotive Linux. It's a good one. So we're here with Jeffrey Osier-Mixon from Red Hat. Automotive Linux. Mm-hmm. I'm so intrigued by this. I know nothing of it.
So there's a lot going on in automotive right now with relation to open source. One thing I want to start out saying is that there actually has been a lot going on in open source in automotive for quite a while.
Okay.
About 8 or 9 years ago, I guess, there was a project started within the Linux Foundation called Automotive Grade Linux.
Okay.
And AGL has been very popular. There are a couple of hundred members, I believe. And Red Hat is a member. We're a bronze member of AGL.
Okay.
AGL's been very influential, and it's I think probably the best example of an embedded style design specifically geared toward automotive.
And it's deployed in production cars?
It is, yes. Toyota has been producing it in production cars.
Okay.
And I believe there's a couple other manufacturers too who have.
Okay. But your thing at Red Hat, you're in that AGL group, but you have something else going on too as well?
We do. We try to collaborate, with the existing communities whenever possible. But the work that we're doing is slightly different. It's basically approaching the vehicle in a different way from the traditional embedded style mechanisms. Normally in a car, in a current car, you have these they're called ECUs, electronic control units.
Okay.
And each one of them is kind of a separate black box that takes input and does output. And sometimes they do some very, very complicated things. Like the head unit might be considered one ECU, or the unit that drives the dashboard. The IVI units are sometimes very sophisticated, particularly if there's gaming units in the back seat.
Yeah.
And that goes all the way down to to brake controllers. Sorry, I was talking to somebody about disk drive controllers.
There's discs in the brakes?
Yeah, disc brake controllers, ignition systems, body control, charging systems now because of the electric vehicles are becoming very popular.
Yeah.
So there's a whole lot of different computers inside a car. And the concept that we are starting to approach, and that a lot of companies are, is more around it's emerging as the name of it is around software-defined vehicles.
Okay.
It's not to say that AGL isn't a software-defined vehicle, because of course it's software that's specifically designed for a vehicle.
Right.
But what the approach that SDVs do is to consolidate a lot of these workloads into one larger computer, and then to control those individual workloads, usually with containers, or possibly with virtual machines, to provide some separation. And there's a lot of challenges with this, because every single workload or activity that happens inside a car, they all have different functional safety requirements. Because some of them, like, if your disc brake system is obviously, that's the highest.
Yeah.
It's called ASIL D for Delta.
That one has to work correctly every time.
Yeah, exactly. So the way I think about it is that there's 4 different levels of automotive safety integrity levels, ASIL.
Okay.
A and B are pretty lightweight. If something breaks, that means you're annoyed. If something that's ASIL level C breaks, that means that you're stuck on the side of the road. If something that's ASIL level D breaks, it means that you might have to have a trip to the hospital.
Okay.
Right. Or something along those lines.
Right.
It's just kind of a
So
rough
A
way.
and B is like, my window won't roll down.
Yeah.
And then C is like, the car won't start.
Car won't start, maybe, or
then-
the ignition system is less functional, or it has some
Right.
kind of a
And then
problem.
D is brakes
Engine
and-
doesn't run well.
Yeah. Explosions. That's D.
Explosions would probably usually fall under ASIL D.
So
Did you
all
say
the-
containers and VMs in a
Yeah.
car?
So
Yeah.
that was the origin of the start of this, is that these workloads all need to be separated because they all have different levels of safety requirements. So there are efforts right now, particularly around Zen and KVM, to do hypervisors, open source hypervisors, that can separate workloads enough to be able to certify them as functionally safe, in the same way that a company would certify one of these black boxes as functionally safe. With the advantage that it's software defined, so that it can possibly be updated in the field, so that it can be orchestrated by some of the amazing orchestration tools that have been developed through DevOps over the last 10 years that currently are not available when everything is a black box.
So one thing I've heard, I'm not sure if it's true or not, is that a challenge of many car manufacturers is all these different systems come from different vendors. Like they're kind of Lego put together like Lego. And so they have different software stacks. They talk different languages. There's like this mishmash of things. And of course, then they have certain new car companies or integrated things where like one company writes all the software across. Is the Automotive Linux stuff that you guys are doing with this whole data center style VM thing, is that helping the circumstance of the diverse vehicles, I guess, or is that still like a huge challenge despite whatever you're running underneath it?
The Tower of Babel challenge is really huge in any industry, and in automotive, or any industry that has a lot of functional safety requirements,
Right.
it's going to be a real challenge. My feeling is that the way that we are approaching it, the way that Red Hat is approaching it, is we're not the only ones doing this. The way that this is being approached within open source communities is really going to improve that Tower of Babel situation, because everybody will be working along the
On
same
one
lines
base.
and working towards the same goals, even if they then differentiate in other ways. And so there are a number of projects that we are involved with right now. One of the primary ones is Eclipse SDV. It's the Eclipse Software Defined Vehicle Working Group.
Okay.
It is, I think that there are 42 or 44 members currently, and we get new members every month or so. It's a very vibrant project. There are, I believe, either 17 or 19 software projects within this umbrella, within this working group. And they've been contributed by a large diversity of companies, including Bosch, Capgemini, Microsoft has a few projects in there. And it's been a real pleasure to work with all of these companies, in this area that is typically very proprietary and not very open. Another project that we work on is called SOAFEE. It's SOAFEE. Stands for Scalable Open Architecture for Embedded Edge.
Okay.
And this is actually a special interest group that is driven by ARM, the hardware IP company.
Right.
But it's not going to be limited to ARM, I'm hoping, in the future. I think that the concepts that it's working on is to create an architecture for embedded edge. So I think that there's an aspiration to do this beyond automotive eventually. But right now the focus is on automotive as a workload, or as a functional area. And that also has, I think, about 75 members.
Okay.
There are talks given all over the place, and it's a very vibrant project.
How far up the stack does the open source world go? I mean, we're talking about Linux, so we're talking about operating system level primitives, making the car function in certain ways, but also, every car now is starting to have a huge a HUD, right? A huge screen in the thing that's going to be driven by some software. that's also going to be in control of things. And so, are there efforts that go higher up into like UIs and
absolutely
drawing screens and stuff?
Yes.
Okay.
There are. There are some projects that are still in their infancy. Right now, the main thrust seems to be getting a lot of the plumbing right. So with Sophie's architecture, that really focuses on the lowest end. From really for how the operating system talks to the hardware, what do all the interfaces look like? How do you do mixed criticality with these VMs and containers? And then a lot of the software projects that are emerging in the Eclipse software-defined vehicle project are a bit higher level. They tend to be, trying to think of some now. I should have made notes before I came to talk to you.
That's all right, no pressure.
I know that Microsoft has one that's called Chariot that is a part of, it's part of the middleware. We call it middleware.
Okay.
I don't know of any actual dashboard projects that are in Eclipse SDV, but there are certainly dashboard projects out there. In fact, AGL actually has an excellent dashboard.
Okay. Does Toyota use that, or they have their own dashboard?
They use that as the basis for developing their own, and that's really what AGL's focus has been, of providing the components that are needed for a car to be created from that software.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I drive a Ford F-250, 2022. What's my operating system? Is it Linux?
Probably not Linux. In fact, I can guarantee it's not Linux. Most likely it's QNX, but it depends on which computer you're talking about also.
Okay.
There will be a number of those.
Jared mentioned the HUD. I have a big old dash right in the middle there.
The
it
dashboard
handles a lot of the stuff.
Dashboard is very likely running QNX.
What is QNS?
QNX is an operating system that was created by BlackBerry, actually.
Okay.
It's a proprietary real-time operating system, and it's used throughout the automotive industry.
What about other vehicles? Like, how long has Linux been the underpinnings to talk about the hardware? Is this new?
This is relatively
this is all very
new.
Why?
It's developing.
Partly because Linux has been historically very difficult to certify as functionally safe.
Okay.
So that's why when AGL has where AGL has made inroads has really been just outside the realm of that ASIL structure. So there's another level of ASIL they call QM, which is quality managed, and the requirements for that are less, and so that would be things that are not. They're not dependent on functional safety. So things like the IVI system. Or there are some dashboard components that fit into that. Body control is another one. Turning on lights when doors are opened, and if you have lights that scale for certain reasons or they're dependent on sensors, those would all be QM level.
Or even
workloads.
like my mirror sensors that say there's a car next to you. I have sensors around my whole entire vehicle. Right. How close am I to the vehicle in front of me? Is there somebody to the left of me? I forget what that system's called, but there's a name for it.
Those are ADAS systems.
Yeah.
Autonomous driver assistance systems.
Right. And very important, if I look left and I see that yellow light, I am not going to start merging left, because that's my initial warning to say, hey, Adam, stay in your lane.
Right. Now, there are some ADAS systems that are emerging that are based on Linux. There's a company called Apex.ai that has been developing one. I believe that's based on Linux. I hope that I'm right about that.
Right.
I know that they use some robotic software called ROS. And the ROS community is actually very popular within ADAS. And we've been doing some work just recently, actually, to better incorporate ROS into the Red Hat world. So we're restarting the robotics special interest group within Fedora and working with Open Robotics, the maintainers of ROS, to get ROS support in there.
Exciting times. So if you were to cast forward to a fully open source based car, soup to nuts, what are we talking? 5 years, 10 years, never?
I wouldn't say never.
Okay.
I think that that the functional safety story is emerging. And functional safety processes generally take 2 to 3 years to go through. So you're looking at least probably 5 years out.
Okay.
I don't know, maybe less. I mean, I know that whether Linux will be Linux is obviously in cars now in areas that don't require functional safety.
Right.
If you're talking about soup to nuts, though, I think you're probably talking more than 5 years out.
Okay.
And maybe never.
What do you think's gonna
but
happen?
It's also because a lot of these computers are still going to exist with real-time operating systems. So, disk brake sensors. There's probably 3 or 4 sensors within a disk
Okay.
brake system. Those will be running real-time operating systems.
All right, so not soup to nuts, like not 100%, but
No,
like
however, there are open source real-time operating systems.
okay.
Zephyr comes to mind, and FreeRTOS as well.
So where does your work, you personally, fit into this whole ecosystem?
So my work, as a community architect within Red Hat's vertical OSPO, or Open Source Program Office. What I do is help Red Hat participate in all of these different industry groups, and I am able to do some of that participation myself as well. I chair the marketing group for the Eclipse SDV working group as well.
And Red Hat has engineers working on this?
Yes.
How many?
I couldn't say at the moment.
Okay.
I would
Ballpark.
say there are not because it's a secret, but only
Sure,
because
'cause you don't know.
Because people drift in and out, and sometimes people will work on specific projects, and sometimes I never even hear about it. But then somebody will emerge and say, "Oh, I've been going to those meetings for a month."
Right.
Well, the dashboard seems like a perfect fit for Linux. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like,
For sure.
Let's replace or put in place the most trusted operating
When
system
is
in the
the
world.
year of the Linux
right?
dashboard?
The year
Yeah.
of the Linux dashboard. I love it.
2025 will be the year.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to put a year on it. But, to go back to the soup to nuts thing, there's another thing that's been really exciting is RISC-V as a hardware.
Yeah.
RISC-V, of course, is emerging hardware. There's not a whole lot available yet, but it has been growing significantly. I had the pleasure of working on RISC-V for about 2 years while I was at the Linux Foundation.
Oh, you did?
And there is a new automotive special interest group that has formed within RISC-V, driven by imagination.
Huh.
And so that's been really exciting too. And I'm really hoping that all of these worlds can kind of come together, and we could create a soup to nuts. I mean,
That would be cool.
imagine it being open all the way down to the transistor level.
Wow. Now you're just pipe dreaming.
Ugh. Yeah.
That would be cool.
Who cares about car safety? Like, who are these interest groups? Is it insurance companies at all? Because, I mean,
No,
they stand to lose, but they also stand to gain
Regulators?
until there's loss.
OEMs, tier 1 suppliers, tier 2 suppliers, basically everybody who is in the line of responsibility for these
Right.
components cares about functional safety.
The CYA stuff. If my software fails or my choices fail, then it's my responsibility.
There is certainly
That kind of situation?
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, for every single person I think that I've dealt with in the automotive industry, people take functional safety very personal.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like a personal. I'm not sure what you'd call it. It's like
Value or priority?
their personal values. Yes.
Yeah.
It makes sense. I mean, nobody wants to build something that's going to hurt somebody.
Right.
Right?
Right. And I tell you, we've been going through the process. Another project that I'm involved with is ELISA. It's a project within the Linux Foundation that evaluates and provides sometimes patches for the Linux world related to functional safety.
Okay.
And part of that is going through harm reduction evaluation processes, and boy, those can get to be pretty amazing. There's an automotive special interest group in there as well, and once you start thinking about all the things that can go wrong, it can take you down some pretty weird paths.
For sure. Do you have, can you say at least, who the most forward-thinking car manufacturer might be, given, this open world, this potential use of Linux, AGL, etc., inside of their vehicles? Like, who's thinking about, like, for example, Discover's here, traditional credit card, but they're celebrating how much they're involved in open source, and they're
Yeah,
coming
I was
out,
glad
I
to
guess, a
see
bit
that.
more in like the technical world to share more of their story. Who is doing that in the car manufacturing world?
Well, I know that GM just joined Eclipse SDV and has actually contributed a project into it. So that is certainly a measure of forward thinking. There are a number of European car manufacturers as well. Mercedes has been involved. And I know that I've talked to a number of other companies who, some of them are starting their own open source program offices. Some of them are starting to participate more in projects even beyond the ones that I've talked about. Some of them are starting to file patches with the Linux kernel. And that's
Yeah.
pretty amazing for a car company to do that, or
Yeah.
even a company that, or even like a spin-off software company that spun off from a car company. These are companies that have traditionally been very proprietary and secretive about their work, and now they're really opening up. I think it's wonderful for open source, and it's certainly great for the automotive industry.
Yeah. How or where would somebody who's curious about Automotive Linux writ large, where do they plug into?
That's a good question. There's certainly a lot of written articles about these. One great place to plug in and learn more is AGL. AGL has been around for 9 years, and there's certainly a lot of written materials out there. And for the method of building automotive software from source, that's really the place to go.
Okay.
For building software based on distros, I would say that the CentOS Automotive Special Interest Group is. I full disclosure, I actually chair the group, so I'm advertising for my own group. But
Fair enough.
it's an open group. We have meetings once a month. We have a chat channel on Matrix and a mailing list that's very active. So that's a place to go and see, what are we building and why. We talk a lot about that. There's
Yeah.
a lot of documentation on the site as well.
Awesome.
And some of these projects like Eclipse SDV is very welcoming. They're very welcoming to people, and they do produce a whole lot of material. So
Cool.
I love it. Linux in my car.
yeah,
Truck. F-250.
and who knows? Maybe
King Ranch.
maybe your submarine someday.
Oh.
If I own a submarine, something's really gone well in my life, okay?
I thought you were
really,
going to say something's gone wrong.
really well, okay? If I can own a submarine, we're slaying it, Jared.
Yeah.
Bucket list.
Oh, yeah.
That's the thing is a lot of transportation, use cases look very similar to cars. Some of them are more fleet oriented. You think about
Yeah.
like big rigs. There's
yeah.
a whole lot of this stuff. This work is going on with shipping, boats, ships themselves. Boeing just started a working group within ELISA to talk about functional safety for avionics and aerospace.
Yeah.
So there's a whole lot going on with transportation right
We
now.
talk zero about autonomous cars. Is that a part of this AGL at all?
I don't know that AGL has done a whole lot with autonomous vehicles. I think there is an autonomous vehicle working group within AGL. There certainly are a number of organizations out there related to autonomous driving. Apex.ai is one of them. One of the ones that we work with quite a lot is AutoWare. There's an open AutoWare automated driving kit that you can build and install on Linux, and in fact we have an image for it within CentOS. And it's also very prevalent within the SOFI community. The AutoWare community has been very active, and that's also based on ROS, on the robot operating system.
Cool.
So many acronyms.
There's a lot of acronyms.
Holy moly.
Yeah.
But I'm happy you say CentOS properly, so congratulations. Which is half the battle. It's
He's
not
been around.
CentOS.
Right.
It's not whatever else you might say. I don't know all the permutations of CentOS, but it is CentOS, so
Yeah.
congratulations.
Thanks. As a Red Hat employee, we get training on that.
Is that right?
It's
Must
like
say
day
CentOS
one.
properly.
First day of Red Hat training is how to pronounce things.
Yeah, how to pronounce CentOS.
Well, Jeffro, thanks for, I was going to say sitting down, but thanks for standing here and talking to us.
We're standing right
absolutely.
now, so that's cool. Thank
Absolutely.
it.
Thanks for doing
You've
your great
opened my
podcast.
eyes to a whole new world.
Absolutely.
All right. Let's stop before Adam starts singing A Whole New World.
You sang it,
No, I didn't. I said, let's stop before Adam starts singing.
and then you sang it.
Nah, that wasn't me singing.
Play it back.
I can sing much better than that.
Play it back.